Hello there, and welcome to another gel with Mark. In today's lesson, we're going to be looking at these little bad boys. Posca paint pens. Have you ever wondered if they can be used on a gel plate? Should we go and find out? Let's gel.
So what we're going to need are some materials. We're going to need a reference image, or you don't have to have a reference image, you can just do something straight out of your head. I found this photo, printed it out, and then I mess about a bit in the digital program and I make a line drawing so it's easier to trace. We need some tracing paper, a soft pastel pencil, a carbon black, obviously a gel plate, and as the video is mainly about Posca pens on a gel plate, we're going to need a selection of Posca paint pens, some acrylic paint. I use Amsterdam Standard Series paint generally, a selection of brushes, a spatula to mix up our colours. We need a brayer, possibly a mixing palette for our paint, and some paper, and I use this quite a lot, which is by Canson, and it's a mixed media paper, and it is 200 GSM. So let's start getting on with the print. First we need to trace our image to make our soft pastel image transfer. So we need our image, a piece of tracing paper, just in case it moves. Then we also need our soft pastel pencil. So you might need an extra piece of paper if you're like me, left-handed. Sometimes your hand goes over the image and can smudge it, but if you work from right to left, you shouldn't really have too much of an issue. It's just a case of doing a decent amount of pressure and getting a good solid line. Now, if you've not seen this before, I've done a different video which is to do with a charcoal image transfer, which is a bit more in depth. So go and check that out after this one if you want some more things to watch. But you can see what I'm doing. It's just simply tracing your line, if you're working off of a reference image, that is. Right, so that's the line drawing done. I'll show you. So I just took out a few of the details, and now it's just a case of putting it onto the gel plate, and it's quite simple really. So you get your gel plate. This is a little registration system I've got, simple little bit of tape at the top with some marks where the edge of my big paper goes, and I've measured so far of my border. It's roughly where it needs to be. You get your drawn transfer, get it drawn side, flip it so it goes face down onto the gel plate. But I will say, as soon as you touch the gel plate, that's where you need to put it, because if you try and lift it up, you're going to get an image, some of the image come off. So just gauge it roughly, put it down, give it a rub over your lines, fairly a little even pressure, doesn't take long. It comes off like that, see, and you've still got a transfer here, so you can go back over these lines with the pastel pencil again, and you can use it multiple times really. We now have our base for where we want to fill in. It's time for putting the Posca pens on. So I've got a range of colours here and range of thicknesses of nib. PC 1Ms, PC 3Ms and PC 5Ms. Okay. If you're not using these, so these are by Uni, Posca paint pens. They're water-based acrylic in a pen, and you can just draw on your plate. I mean, sometimes you've got to go over it twice. It depends really. So you can touch the plate where the transfer's gone down. The plate holds the pastel quite well. I will say, when you're putting a paint pen over a pastel, it does smudge a little bit. It's not too much of a problem. I just draw over the lines where I've decided that I'm going to put them. And that's quite simple, really. I decided to do this video because I still get quite a lot of comments on my Facebook page asking what paint pen I'm using, what I'm using, and people are quite surprised that you can use a Posca paint pen on a gel plate. So I thought I'll just do a little video to show you that you can. Now I'm just going for quite a vibrant silk screeny kind of print look, kind of a lot of my work is like. I've just got to make sure I don't put my hand on any of the paint that I've just put down. I'm sure we can do it though. This is a slightly smaller nib. This is a 3M. The one before was a 5M. You might find my choice of imagery a little bit strange. I did a print yesterday night, which is of a similar vein, and people seemed to quite like it, so I thought I'd do a slight variation. But I do like quite obscure imagery sometimes. So we are coming up to that bin green. Just do the lips red. These three are all 1Ms. I'm gonna that's fine, isn't it? You can blend the pens a bit on the plate if you want, because they are obviously paint pens. So if you're putting wet against wet, it will tend to merge a bit. Sometimes that's okay, sometimes you don't really want that. That'll do. I'm going to do the hair. Quite round nibs. I like the round nibs. You can get, some of them have got chisel nibs. I think that's a few of the bigger ones. But I find a round tip easier to manage on the plate. It's hard to feel the silences. Sometimes, see, normally when I'm working, I've just got my music on, playing in my ears, and it's not a problem, but it's quite tricky filling these silences, so I apologise. So I'm just gonna not do too much detail on this. Give an impression. You do, when you start filling it in with the paint, your paint layer will fill in these spaces, and like I'm going to be using a lighter colour underneath, on top, but it will appear underneath on the print, and that'll fill in these little gaps. So that's quite good for that bit. This here area, I'm going to do a bit of a pattern. Let's have a little splash of pink here, I think. Maybe. Now, this is where I might stop the video in a minute, because this is quite a laborious process I'm about to do, but I'll show you how I start it off, and then I'll change it probably. So, these are M3s. So here we go. So I'm just going to do a simple pattern with lines. So I'm going to do up lines. Let's give 2. Okay, 2, 2. This can be quite tricky. See, I'm already starting to change it. Doing the different size lines, but that's okay. I don't mind too much. So I'm going to power on through this bit, and then I will be back with you once it's all filled in just a minute. Okay, so that's all the Posca paint pens done. Now I'll just zoom in slightly so you can see it a little bit. So here you go. So you can see the Posca paint pens on the phone. It's all dry, and as you can see there, that's what I've just been doing. And yeah, it would have been a bit boring if you were just sitting through watching me do all of that. So it's a little bit time consuming, but you want a nice effect at the end. So that's just what I've done. So now the next part, you're doing all the filling in. So the way I do it, because I try and do it all as a one pool print, you've got to think in reverse. So obviously you could think of it as your foreground, midground and background. I tend to think of it in a way of details first, then main colours of the main parts of the image, and then the background as the very last colour to put down. So now we're going to start filling in on the eyes, and then the face, then the body, and then we're going to do the background. I've already got some paint here. So that one's Naples Yellow Red. The pink is Persian Rose, and then I've just got some titanium white. So with the eyes, I'm going to start off with the white, generally in the center. Then I'm going to do a bit of the Naples Yellow Red, and then I'm going to do the pink near the edge, and then I'm going to blend it with the brush. So it's kind of got a bit of a painterly effect on the final outcome. Also, I think a lot of people are a little bit scared of putting large amounts of paint on a gel plate. Now, it does have its drawbacks. I mean, like I say, you need a good paper. You can't really do this on copier paper because it's too much moisture. You can use a fair amount of paint on a gel plate as long as you leave it to dry a good amount of time. You won't really have a problem. I never have a problem generally in pulling a print which has got like 4, 5, 6 layers of paint on, thickish, applied with a brush. I just leave it a good 5 or 6 hours sometimes overnight to dry, and it pulls off fine. So let's get painting, stop the waffling. So here, as you see, I quite like a kind of quite a painterly effect. So I'm going just around the center and out, because, you know, I'm thinking what you're going to see on the print is that's going to be at the foreground. So that's what you want first, and then blending out into these other colors. That's how I'm thinking as I'm painting. And I'm not, you know, I'm not being too precious over it. I'm just filling it in. So we'll do that, and then a bit of a wash. Then we're going to go into Naples Yellow Red. I'm going to add a bit of that in. Kind of blend it in a bit as we're painting. Just moving the paint around, making it connect with each other. Need to get a little bit of pink on the edge of this one. I could always zoom in a bit so you can see what I'm doing a little bit more. I'll do that now. Once this coat is down, we're then going to, when we do the face, that is just going to go completely over that again. So all these little lines that you're going to see
will blend in. The face is going to be a pale colour as well. But if I was to make the face, say, I don't know, a dark blue, just say, then that will obviously affect this layer as well, because the dark blue will show through all these little lines, little areas that are thinner in paint. I try to consider what I'm putting down, what is going to be the kind of colour scheme of the print. So now we're going to go in with a little bit of this darker pink. So just do that. I'll try it a bit. It's quite hot here in England at the moment. We've got a bit of a heat wave, so this is drying quite quickly. I would have some music on my videos, but I know a lot of people don't like music. Does that mean like everything like art and music's all subjective, isn't it? So I also worry a little bit sometimes when I don't have a huge amount to say at certain points, so it's a bit silent. I'm aware that it's silent. I'm not quite sure how to fill that silence without music. So I apologise for the silences. Right, I think that's pretty good on the eyes. Right. I also sometimes use a hairdryer. Now, I know, again, that's also considered a bit of a faux pas in the gel plating industry, because the manufacturers say don't apply heat to the plate, but in my experience, if you put the hairdryer on, have it on its lowest heat, on its lowest power, and you're a good, say, this far away from the plate, like that, and you're moving it all the time. I've never had a problem with my gel plate. I've never done any damage to my gel plate. If you do this and you damage a gel plate, I can't be held accountable. I'm saying I do it all the time and I've never had a problem. I'm just going to do that quickly now. Okay, so now we're going to concentrate on the face and the hair and the hand. On my board now, I've got some Naples yellow green and I've got a bit of a warm grey. So also another thing that you can do, which helps with a little bit of colour harmony. Again, I've done another little video on this on my YouTube channel about colour harmony, trying to understand a bit more about colour and how they relate. There's a little technique tip. If you add these three colours here in the eye, now I could take all three of those colours and mix a bit of it with these next two colours, and that will harmonise the colours slightly. It'll make them all relate more because they've all got the same colour in them. Or I could choose just one of the colours and add that to all the other colours. Like I say, I've done a whole video on this, so go and check it out afterwards if that sounds interesting. I've got this extra paint here. I hate wasting paint, so I'm just going to mix this paint up and I'm just going to add it to these two colours, and that's going to be our main two colours for the hand and the face and hair. So I've got this darker tan colour, this darker tone, that I want to put a bit around where I think there's going to be a bit of shadow. So we're just going to fill it in, not be too picky and choosy. I'm just going to blob it in. And what I like about the gel plate is I like the surprise at the end when you've pulled your print, because obviously what you're laying down is it looks completely different the other end, the other side. And I tend to try and not look at the other side of the plate until I'm pulling. Yeah, so there we go. We're going to put a bit of that on. That's good. Maybe do the ear. Now, this is where it's just like, just get a bigger brush. You can fill it in. I quite often, when people look at my stuff on Facebook and various, sometimes on YouTube, and they're watching it and they don't do gel printing this way, I tend to get the comments saying, oh, when you started putting all that paint on top, I thought you made a mistake, but nah, this is the cool bit. So it's just whacking on the paint. Now, I generally do this twice because, like you can see, when it goes on first, it can be a bit streaky. And I don't want the background colour to show up on my character. So I do a first pass normally, let it dry, and then I'll come in with a second pass And it doesn't always have to be the same colour, as long as it's a similar tone. If you run out of paint, sometimes I run out of paint and I've got excess paint on my board. As long as I've got the first initial coating down like this, you can have slight variation of the next colour that goes on, because you've kind of got this base colour blocking it anyway. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to drop comments on the comments section. Happy to answer questions about any of the process that I'm doing. So just got to be careful down this bottom bit where we're going to connect it to the jumper, because that jumper is going to be a nice purple in a minute. Like I say, there where we've done the hair and we've left those gaps, so now you're going to get this kind of nice, kind of deep golden yellow, but then you're going to have these little nice pops of highlight coming through on the final print. We filled the face, so what I'm going to do once I've just done this little bit is I will stop the video a minute. I'll dry it again with the hairdryer, this layer, and then I will do my second layer, so we're ready to do the jumper. Right, so now we filled in the face and the hair and the hand. Now we're just going to work on this main body here. We're going to cover all this Posca paint pen here. And I've just mixed up this lavendery purple colour, and it's again laying it straight down. 2 passes again, and when you're laying it down, you know, you don't have to worry about this edge. You can go over this edge a bit, because it's got a double layer on, so you won't see anything that goes over that anyway. Just don't have to have much care here, because you're not going to affect pretty much any of the other paint that's on now, so you can just go quite quickly. I quite like that flat colour look. I like a kind of screen print effect, and I like to try and achieve that on a gel plate. I mean, I could do silk screen printing, but this is just less equipment and it's a lot more easier, no setting up. So there, that one's done. There, that's done. So now we'll just put another layer on top quickly. So there you go. Okay, so that's the main character filled in with all the paint and all the details. So now we just need to do the background, but I'm just going to show you, kind of give you an idea. Let's zoom in a bit. You can see the texture on the plate there. Look, that's, that's quite thick, the paint. You can see all the kind of different ridges and brush marks. So you don't need to be scared, if you are scared, about putting a decent amount of paint on. So now we're going to do the background. So I'm just going to mix my colour quickly. Right, I've just mixed up my background colour, kind of dusty pink colour. I've added a little touch of this lilac to it again to try and harmonise it all a little bit. This is how I do it. So I don't like just blobbing it. I always find when you blob it, where you put the blob, it's really hard to kind of blend that out. I like a really flat, like I said, I like a flat colour, especially for certain things like this. So I find the best way to do it for me is if I spread it on with a palette knife. I used to just do it once. Yesterday when I was experimenting, I did it in 2 passes. So I did this, so I put it on, I use my brayer, make sure it kind of goes into all of those ridges. You can get like the kind of patches. Sometimes you get a bit of build up on the edge. That's the first pass. We've just dried that. So now the last one. So at this point, before you put this paint on, it'd be good practice to make sure your paper is ready to go on. So I've got my paper just to the side. So I'm ready to go once this layer's braided on. Here we go. So try and make it as smooth as possible. I think that looks pretty good. So now I've got my guide, I've got this. So I get my paper and I line it up with this strip of paper here. Or tape. It's pretty much in line there, up to there. I'll drop it down. And just put it down. Give it a nice rub over. Now another little tip, I always, once I've given it a bit of a light rub over, I always put a weight on top. I tend to use 3 big heavy books. And so they go on top. So that squishes that paper onto that wet paint and onto the gel plate, compresses it. I normally probably, with now, I would just leave it overnight. I'm going to try and leave it for an hour. I might give it a quick whiz over with the hairdryer on the back of this paper here. Take some of that moisture out. I've left it a good while. It's been about an hour and 20 minutes. I have given it a little bit of a whiz over with the hairdryer on the back. Let's see if it's worked. So there you go. It came out all right. I mean, it's a bit of a grotesque image, I'll admit. I like playing with these silly images. It's fun. But it does still feel a bit tacky here, but it has come off of the plate. You always generally get Posca pens can leave a little bit of a residue, and also soft pastel always leaves a little bit of a ghost image. I mean, you could probably pull that again with a ghost image. I don't really tend to do ghost images. I'm not that interested in ghost images. You know, looks pretty cool. Do you agree? Drop me a comment, let me know what you think. But as you can see here with the eyes, see, it's blended. It's quite cool. Get that kind of painterly effect. Yeah, so anyway, that was my video on Posca Pens, and show that you can use them on the gel plate, no problem. Just to get this residue off, I've done another little video on how I clean the plate. Check out some of my other content. Likes and thumbs ups are all really good, and please do that for me. But the main thing that pushes it out to a broader audience is the more videos of mine that get watched, the more YouTube will push it out to new viewers. So if you like this video, maybe subscribe, watch some of my other content. On the screen there's going to be a couple more videos that you can watch after this one if you so wish. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you found it informative. Let me know, and I'll see you again on Gel with Mark. Thanks a lot. Bye.